Hey, Bobby Manning here. Welcome to the Garden Report Eastern Conference Championship edition. They got done, Noah. I wasn't sure watching the late stretch of this game if they were going to. I know we were up there talking. Jack Simone was up there, and I was like, I don't know if they're going to get this done. They're down 8 with 6 minutes to go. They're down, I think it got to like 4 again at 102.98. After a couple big baskets by the Pacers. TJ McConnell still going crazy in this one. Andrew Nembhard, a very similar game to game 3. But another Jrue Holiday and one to make another comparison. And
the same exact shot. It was insane.
And a Derek White 3. On the day, I do love that. A year to the day, he hit the game 6 shot. And in a game where he was struggling immensely throughout. I think he started 1 for 8 from 3, right? In this one. So Celtics get it done. Another comeback win, another crunch time win. Just incredible the way they won this series, the way they swept this series, because this is like a Brooklyn Nets style sweep from 2022, where it's just 4 intense games where they're getting the other team's best, and they still win all these games. And we discussed it earlier. We debated earlier. We both said Jaylen Brown deserves MVP, barring what happens tonight. In the beginning of this game,
he almost lost it. Yeah, he was like 1 for 5.
Closed the gap.
Tatum
Brown
started strong.
Slow, but who's closing this one with another big moment late? A block inside that they needed badly, and a breakout pass to White from really the elbow to the corner where he hits that 3-pointer. A 5-4 vote. We have Bontemps, Doris Burke, Joe Varden, Gary, and Jeff Ziegler going Jaylen Brown. We have PJ Carlissimo. We have Dustin from the Indy Star, John Schumann, and Dennis Scott going Jason Tatum. So by the thinnest of margins, as we said this morning, there was going to be a divisive vote.
We predicted it perfectly.
We were even expecting a Jrue vote. Didn't get that, but we got a 5-4 vote here in favor of Jaylen Brown. And as he said after the game, he was shocked. And you saw his reaction out there when it happened. He said, I don't win anything. So there's my 5 minutes. Noah, where's your mind at after this?
First of all, I think that you have to believe in the Celtics team after the series, and not letting this one slip away just shows such a growth that they could have just said, gentlemen sweep, we'll take it, we'll go home, we'll figure this out. I don't think the series was at risk regardless of what was going to happen tonight, but they put it away. I mean, 3 clutch time wins that were all like super unlikely. I mean, in all 3 of them, they were not in a position to win, and they managed to pull it out.
In all of them.
And they, the players talked about it after the game. It was different guys at different moments that stepped up for different big plays. I mean, Derek White, game winner tonight. I think everybody that has been covering and following this team all year expected that shot to go in, because those are the kinds of shots that he's been hitting all season long, right? Jrue Holiday, the game-winning rebound, thought that was the most quintessential, like perfect way for this series to end. For him to be able to have like a game-winning play that is an offensive rebound, like so perfect that's how it happened. Jaylen making that read, making that pass that I don't know that he could have even made that pass a couple years ago, and now it's just become second nature to him to make the right play. We see him working with the coaches all the time on those kinds of things. So to me, it really just stood out that everybody was kind of at their best in those final moments, which is exactly the opposite of what we thought about this team for years now. And Jaylen made it a point after the game to say that was a different team. It was a different coach. We had different players. Like we don't want to keep living in that shadow. And I think he's right that we need to start viewing this, 2024 Celtics team as their own entity. And I think this is a really special team. And I thought that he absolutely deserved to win Finals MVP or Eastern Conference Finals MVP. But also it deserved to be a 5-4 vote because I think Tatum had a really strong case as well. But yeah, we were trying to figure out how to get back to the court, and I walked down and I saw him kind of holding the trophy, and it felt like the right choice that the voters made.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's necessary too, I think, for his contributions, for him to get his flowers. Like, this isn't a knock on Tatum. This isn't a Tatum Brown debate here. Even, some of the stuff I've been talking about throughout this postseason, like his voice and trying to get Tatum going. I mean, that's important. And someone had to fill that gap this year. We all questioned where it would come from with Grant leaving, Smart leaving, and Jaylen even mentioned stepping into Smart's shoes tonight with some of that vocal presence that he's exuded here. He talked about holding the bar high, holding guys accountable. Doing it a little publicly, I think, important too, just to kind of keep guys' feet to the fire. And he certainly did that with Tatum for a lot of this run, and Tatum got going in this series. So, like you mentioned, legitimate runner-up status there. I'm just glad they didn't hand it to the top player on the top team like they often do here. It obviously almost happened. But Brown was essential. I mean, beyond everything he did tonight, beyond the 40 points in game 2, when he goes out and makes that steal or that forces that turnover at the end of game one and then hits that shot, I mean, we're legitimately talking about a series that could be 3-1 right
Absolutely.
now, Pacers. And certainly 3-1 right now, going back to Boston at the very least, if they're able to win that one, and the Celtics have to win another game at that point. For them to steal 3 games, to sweep Indy and do it in that fashion, coming from behind with him a central piece every time. I mean, it's just, and we talk about White, the contrast versus last year. Think of the contrast for Jaylen versus last year and where he's at this point, taking all the blame for that loss.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Jaylen had the most kind of questions around him going into the offseason. He's talked extensively about how difficult of a game 7 that was, probably the worst game of his career. The response that he's had this entire season, I think there's no way to really overrate it. Like, just on all ends of the floor, I thought was really telling tonight. He said the thing that was the most disappointing for him from all the awards talk and being left off All NBA was not being named to All Defense. And he probably didn't have the strongest case to make All Defense. He did get quite a bit of votes. I think he was in the top 20, top 15 there. But that's where his mindset was at. And you saw such leaps on that end of the court. I felt like the second half of that game, he was willing them to win. Tatum started strong and then kind of faltered down the stretch, and they weren't getting offense from other guys. It wasn't an Al Horford night. It wasn't a Derek White night. It wasn't a bench night. Jaylen had a couple plays in the fourth quarter. There was one where he grabbed an offensive rebound that I ran back and rewatched it. He was totally out of position for it, and he just like willed his way to the ball. And then that same possession, he hit a contested 3-pointer. So he was just kind of doing everything. So I thought it was really such a fitting way for this to wrap up and for them to go into the finals with him having that extra confidence, that extra feel of like, I'm actually being recognized. I got some sort of reward. I don't think, Tatum gets a lot of rewards. He was just first team All NBA. I thought it was very fitting that that's how it went down.
Yeah, for sure. And credit to Tatum for deferring to Brown when necessary. Brown getting the touches, getting the time he needs. Remember in the past, like Brown would just disappear. He'd have these stretches where you're like, wow, look at Brown go. He can be that guy. And then it'd just disappear. And for those two to, not go my turn, your turn, but trade off and have their opportunities. And I think the big thing this year that they always talked about was like matchups. And a lot of the time Brown does have the matchup. So they're getting him the ball in a scoring position, even if it's in transition. And that's the matchup technically. And that's how he's been able to be so consistently involved. And I think that's why there's not a lot of drama over touches, over points, over opportunity here. So
I mean, there used to be moments last season where it was like Jaylen Brown attempted 0 shots in the second half, and you'd go back and watch and he's just like iced out of the offense, or he's just kind of standing in the corner. And it's obviously that's not a good thing for the Celtics. You don't ever see that anymore. He gets his own, but not because he's going and, hogging the ball, but because the offense is just allowing him to thrive.
And White, got to get to him. Didn't have a great series. Didn't have a great night even. I know Joe mentioned the defense. He was getting burnt at times by these guards, and he stayed in it. I think there's a little bit of an exhaustion with him right now, too, that you see in the responsibility that he has in this series, the speed of this series.
Yeah.
It probably caught up to him a little bit after a certain point. And, guys have their time. Other guys don't. You look at Jrue in this series, and he was consistently involved. He was able to be that aggressive guy. But just for White to cap it off is important. He has to hit that shot, and he did. It's a real moment.
Yeah, absolutely. And one thing I will say, I think he struggled defensively in the series, and some of it was also just mismatches. Like, how many times did we see him guarding Siakam in the post? And it goes to show you also that, like, Rudy Gobert just won Defensive Player of the Year, and he was hunted by Luka on that last shot. Derek White we know he's one of the best defensive players in the league, but that doesn't mean that you don't find yourself in situations and in moments and in games and in series where you're really struggling because of the way that you're being hunted or mismatched. So I thought, it was a tough one for him for sure, kind of similar to what we saw from Al last series, where he kept being on kind of the receiving end of a lot of tough plays defensively. For him to come in and hit that shot at the end on the 1-year anniversary of him hitting the tip shot in Game 6, his dad tweeted it out. I don't know if people already realized that before, but that was my first time realizing it. Super kind of full circle moment. And obviously that one didn't have the intent, the intended outcome of actually sending them to the finals. This one, a lot less drama, a lot less on the line. They had a 3-0 lead, but I thought it was really fitting that he had that final shot to send them to where they want to be back to.
Yeah, and that's something I asked them. We got to talk to Richard White on the court here right after the ceremony, so check that out here on CLNS Media. Check out all our coverage, 1 million pressers tonight, a ton of writing to come here. There's 10 days off until the NBA Finals, so we'll have a ton of time to talk about the Mavericks, but Noah and I got into them a little bit and the threat they present earlier, so if you do want going in early. Discussion on them. We did it on post game, and we did it here in Indianapolis as well. Of course, this great trip brought to you by amazing sponsors like Prize Picks. Go to prizepicks.com/CLNS for 100% matching bonus up to $100 over there. Use that code CLNS. Just pick two players, pick more or less on their projections, and you're off. Our official daily fantasy sports partner. Again, prizepicks.com/CLNS. Game time. Listen, everyone's going to want a finals ticket. Game time's the place to go. If you're going to find a deal, and they'll give you $20 off, which could go a long way on your first purchase over there for finals tickets and more, concerts, events, everything you need over there on the Game Time apps. Use the code CLNS for a discount on your first purchase. Terms apply. And PXG, we're about to be into June, Memorial Day here and gone. It's summertime. So go out there and get your great summer and golf apparel, polos, hats, tees, and more at pxg.com/Garden Report. Use the code Garden Report for a discount. She's Noah Dalzell. I'm Bobby Manning. The Celtics are Eastern Conference champions for the second time in 3 years, and they are going to try to win the NBA championship this time around. Dallas, Minnesota tomorrow. Can they wrap it up? The Mavericks, that'll get the discussion going early, but they're likely going to be that opponent for the Celtics on that other side of this series. NBA Finals start June 6th. Will Kristaps play? Will the Celtics be ready for this? That's all stuff we'll discuss over the next week and a half here. Back in Boston. I feel that way too. I think we're all going to be feeling pretty good about the Celtics in this series. So stay tuned with us for all that coverage, all the debate, perspectives, and more. Thank you for being here with us through this whole run. Thanks to Noah Dalzell, who's been an amazing part of the Garden Report as we've gone through the season here. It's been great to have her here for these conversations throughout the run. And I'm Bobby Manning. Celtics on to the championship, and we are back to Boston. This has been the Garden Report.